Welcome back to Invictus Forum. This time we are going to talk about how to handle prose appreciation. And to handle prose appreciation, you will be given an unseen poem, a poem which you have never seen before. And you'll be asked to appreciate and interpret the poem. Poetry appreciation is about bringing out meaning in a poem, both denotative and connotative. Denotative meaning refers to the ordinary meaning in the poem as seen with the naked eye, whereas connotation deals with secondary meaning based on context, the context in which it has been used. For example, a home refers to a place where people live, which may be an apartment, a house, or a room. That's denotative. But the word home has a positive connotation which may associate with safety, comfort, and a sense of belonging. That's a secondary meaning to the word home, which is different from a house. The difference between connotation and denotation is that connotation of a word depends on cultural context and personal association, but denotation of a word is its standardized meaning. In simple language, to denote means to indicate, to mean, whereas to connote means to signify or to suggest certain ideas or meaning as used in context. In addition to the explicit or primary meaning, so when you are connoting, you are going beyond the ordinary meaning of that word or that phrase. You are going to look for an additional meaning in the manner in which it has been used in context. Therefore, question A, which you will be getting during the exam, is what do you consider to be the meaning of the poem? Here, you are expected to give the standard meaning of what you say. Begin first by identifying the personae or the persona, that is the characters, the setting, and the actions that take place in the poem. You can end by giving a statement that identifies the subject matter. I usually advise students to underline the main words in each line of the poem and then link them up to make sensible sentences to bring out the meaning. Let me just read something to you. They embraced a cause which they knew nothing about. Killings, kidnappings, and threat became the order of the day. Youths and the old, none was spared. The coffers of the state went dry, and the economy suffered, and the people drank misery. What a loss. That's a short extract of a poem. I can go to the sentence and I say, they embrace a cause that they knew nothing about. I'll underline they because they refers to the people in the poem. And then cause, C-O-U-R-S-E, cause. Cause means a fight. And then I'll underline kidnappings, killings, the order of the day. And then I'll take none was spared. And then I'll take coffers, dry. Then I'll take economy suffered. And I'll take misery. And I can give my general meaning now to be some people embrace a fight which they did not understand well. And they started kidnapping, killing every day. Both the old and the young were killed. The state, money in the state became scarce and the economy declined. There was general poverty. And that's my meaning. I've just taken key words from the poem and I have linked them. I've already identified the setting is in a state. So it is about a struggle in a state that leads to killings and poverty. Now, subject matter. What is subject matter in a poem? It deals with the ideas that the poem is concerned about or the messages that it has to deliver. To identify the subject matter, ask yourself, what is the poem about? If the poem is about love or war, what aspects of love or war does the poem handle? If it is about war, is it the uselessness of war? Is it the futility of war? Is it the consequences of war? Is it the abuses in war? If it is love, is it about romantic love? Is it about reciprocal love? Is it about non-reciprocal love? Is it about love between the living and the dead? What aspect of love is the poem handling? What is the difference between subject matter and theme in a poem? The subject matter is what the poem is about, and the theme is what it says about the subject matter on its point of view. Take note that in poetry, we have verses and lines. Poems are written in verses or lines, and the lines make up stanzas. And stanzas can be regular, composed of lines that relate to a similar thought or a topic. And each poem has a form. This is the physical structure of a poem, the length of the lines, their rhythms, rhymes, repetitions, stanza structures. All of this make up the form, the physical outlay of the poem in relationship to stanzas and lines. And each poem has a structure. This is the organization of the poem's elements, including elements such as stanza length, rhyme scheme, and meter. In short, it is the organization of ideas in the stanza. So if they ask you a question, comment on the form of the poem. You are talking about the lines and the stanzas. But if they ask you, comment on the structure of the poem, you are talking about the ideas, how the ideas have been developed in the poem. In stanza 1, he talks about killings. In stanza 2, he talks about a meeting where there is peace. In stanza 3, the people think about development. That's the structure. Each poem also has a tone. The tone is a literary device that conveys the author's attitude towards the subject matter, the speaker or the audience of the poem. In simple language, it is the manner in which language is used to express ideas raised in the poem. The tone can be sincere, sarcastic, humorous, tragic, cheerful, hopeful, informal. The tone can shift throughout the poem to reflect the natural progression from one emotion to the other. The tone can move depending on how the ideas change also in the poem. And each poem also has an attitude, the poet's attitude. What is it? This is a feeling of the poet, expressed or conveyed through language about the subject matter, the speaker, or the setting. This can be created through the writer's choice of words, pace, rhythm, or imagery. The attitude can be that of condemnation, admiration, disgust, or praise. Take note that tone and attitude go hand in glove. The attitude cannot be positive and the tone is negative. If the attitude is positive, the tone will be positive. If the attitude is negative, the tone will also be negative. What is the mood or atmosphere of a poem? So, the atmosphere of the poem is the the landscape of the poem, the way emotions are raised in a poem so that the reader can have a feeling. It can also be referred to as mood. And types of mood can include sad or melancholic, depressed, peaceful, romantic, ecstatic, joyful, anxiety, optimistic, pessimistic, depending on the subject matter. If the subject matter is about love, generally or most often, then the mood or the atmosphere will be romantic. If it is about a happy event, then the atmosphere will be joyful. If it is a sad event, then the atmosphere will be melancholic. If it is a tense situation, a poem about a tense situation that we are talking about outcome, it will be that of anxiety. If it is a poem where the future seems very bright, the atmosphere will be optimistic, and so on and so forth. On the other hand, diction deals with a careful selection of words and vocabulary items to reinforce meaning. This is where connotation is used at its best. For example, embraced in the extract I just read means with passion. The young boys took up arms to fight with passion. And the word none was spared symbolizes the generalized killing that had taken place, the brutality. And the word loss indicates the uselessness of war. So if we go back to that extract, the subject matter is about war. But what about war? The uselessness of war or the futility. Why? Because in war there will be suffering. The economy will suffer. People will lose lives. Let's talk about meter. It describes the rhythm or pattern of beats in a line or verse. It is made up of stressed and non-stressed syllables. A metrical pattern consisting of a stressed and unstressed syllable followed by a stressed syllable is called an iamb. A trochee is a metrical pattern that consists of one stressed syllable followed by an unstressed syllable. An anapest is a metrical pattern that comprises two unstressed syllables followed by a stressed syllable. And lastly, dactyl is a metrical pattern that comprises a stressed syllable followed by two unstressed syllables. So we are saying that the four most common meters are iambs, trochee, anapest, and dactyl. A poem written in one stanza of 14 lines is known as a sonnet. The first 8 lines are referred to as the octave, while the last 6 lines is the sestet. Any poem that is written in 4 lines per stanza is written in quatrains, and above 14 lines per stanza, that poem is written in cantos. Now, they could also ask you types of poems. There is nothing in literature like a war poem, a love poem, or a nature poem. All of these poems can fall under the following. Poems simply deal with war, with love, or nature. An elegy is a poem that deals with serious reflection, which is typically related to the elements of the dead, while lyric is a poem that is purely reflective of personal emotions and thoughts. Pastoral poems are poems that deal with nature, while the ode is a poem of praise expressing enthusiastic emotions. If you are asked to identify the type of poem, use these definitions as your justification. The poem is an elegy. Why is it an elegy? The poem is a pastoral poem. Why is it a pastoral poem? Because it deals with nature. If you are asked to continue a poem, you should follow a new line of thought that is close to that in the poem. Sometimes they can ask you write the end of the poem in a quatrain. Here, they want to find out if you understand what a quatrain is in addition to the content. Rhyme is the poet's deliberate pattern of lines that rhyme with other lines in the end of every stanza or line. It is about the odd or even sounds, not letters at the end of verses. Some rhyme schemes can be regular, irregular, or couplets. For example, AB, AB, CD, CD is regular. ABC, ADE is irregular. AA, BB, CC, DD are couplets. Peter looked out to sea as the ship sailed at sea. Nothing was in sight except a faint light. C and C, AA. Sight and light, BB. That poem is written in couplets. How successful is a poem? If you are asked such a question, the poem is successful. These are what we are going to use as your answer. A poem can be successful because of the subject matter, how relevant it is to the reader, the poet's tone, the poet's attitude, the stanza form, the diction. Is the diction familiar? Is it easy? If it is, then it will lead to easy understanding. Anyone that you use, explain how it has contributed to the general understanding of the poem.